The SAT just released 270 new SAT problems, and in this video I'll be going over every single new percentage problem. And by the way, all these problems were rated hard by College Board, so they are very difficult. So percentage problems, I think, are one of the most difficult problems in SAT because you have to pay very close attention to wording, as I'll show you in this first example. So the example says the number of audiobooks in a library increased by 131% from last year to this year. The number of audiobooks in the library last year was N, and the number of audiobooks in the library this year is Bn, where B and N are constants. What is the value of B? So most of you probably would see that increased by 131%, and then it's asking for Bn. So this kind of seems like a percent. The percent converting to decimal is because it's how many times n. So most of you probably just convert this to a decimal and just put 1.31 and think that's the answer. But that's actually wrong in this scenario because here it says increased by. If it says increased by, it means you have to add 100% to this number. So it would be 231%. Rather than this, so the answer here would be 2.31, not 1.31. This is because whenever it says increased by, that means you have to add the original number to it. So take this for example. Say if it said like a number 10 increases by 10%. So 10 and then increase by 10%, so you multiply it by 0.1. If you did this right here, then it would become a number smaller than 10, but it's increasing by a percentage. So you would add 1 to it, so it would be 1.1 rather than 10, so it adds the 10 to it. But what most of you guys probably see is when you see 100 or 1 before it, you probably confuse that and thinking that they already add it, but they don't actually already add it, and you have to add 100% to it whenever it says increases. This is one of the SAT's big tricks on percentage, so something you need to be very careful for. And to further explain this problem, here it's saying like the old books are N and the new books are Bn, meaning that it's this many times greater. And if it says that's 130% greater than, that means it increased by 131%, then you would add the 100% to this, so it's 231% more than that, more than the old one, so you'd convert to decimal because it's just multiplying by the n. So now, to look at the next problem here. So this next problem is again another very difficult percentage problem. So the problem here says the speeds of objects A, B, and C are A meters per second, B meters per second, and C meters per second respectively. If the speed of object A is 5,900% of the speed of object C, and the speed of object C is 0.008% of the speed of object B, which expression represents the value of A plus B in terms of C? So usually when you get percent problems just like this, what I would do is I would make a bracketed regression, and then I would use that to find the values of each letter, and then I would just basically see which one A plus B is equal to this. So what I would do here is I'm given that 5,900% A is equal to 5,900% of C. So to write that out, I would just write A equals 5,900% of C, and then I'm given here that C is equal to 0.008% of B. So C equals 0.008% of B. So now I have two equations where I can plug them in decimals, and it can actually give me the value of each of the numbers. So what I would do here is a bracket regression, and if you don't know what this is, check out my other decimals videos where I do explain this more in depth. So what I would do here is I write everything on this side of the equation in this bracket, and every side of this side of the equation in this bracket. So I'll do A, C, and then here A is equal to 5,900% of C, and by the way, whenever you click the percent sign, it adds the of to it, so you don't need to add that yourself. And then here is 0.008% of B. Now because they're all 0, so I need to plug A equals 1. So if I plug in A equals 1, I get the values of all the numbers. So what I can do here is it says which one in terms of C is equal to A plus B. So I'll just write A plus B in, and then I'm just going to plug in each one of these answers, and whatever one equals this one is the correct answer. So 1840C. So here this is 31, not the right answer. Here is 5908C. That's also not the correct answer. 6025. That also doesn't equal it, so the answer here must be D. And then to double check it, here you see that this is the exact same thing as this, so the answer here is D. So this here's a question you need to be careful of. It kind of looks very complicated, the wording of it, but just one thing to keep in mind is that just take it slow and just read through the problem, and then for the most part you'll get them right. So now on to the next problem. So next problem here, it says at a recreation center, visitors used exercise room for a total of T hours in July. At the same recreation center, visitors used the exercise room for 3.49 hours in August. What is the percent increase in the number of hours visitors used the exercise room from July to August? So percent increase. So the first thing I'm going to do here is it says that it was T hours in July and then 3.49 T hours in August. So what I'm going to plug in 1 for T here. So it's 1 hour in July. So 1 hour in July and then 3.49 in August. So now, once I have this here, what I do, it says the percent increase. So that means you have to subtract these two numbers and then you do the percent there. So it would be 3.49 minus 1. So 3.49 minus 1, and that's 2.49. So 2.49 is equal to the difference between them. And then what I would do is that just times 1 because it's T. So I would just convert this into a percentage, and it's 249% because you just multiply it by 100 to convert to percent. So the answer here is C. So like on this one here, it says percent increase. So you have to be careful not to choose 349 because percent increase means you have to subtract the two numbers before getting percent. And also here, make sure you convert to percent and not leave it in decimals because that's where these problems right there go wrong. So on to the next problem here. So the next problem here says a square scale drawing has a side length of 55 inches and 1 inch of the drawing represents an actual distance of 19 miles. A larger version of the same drawing is printed as a square with a side length 65% longer than the side length of the previous drawing. On the larger drawing, which of the following is closest to the actual distance in miles represented by 1 inch? So I'm just going to see how many total miles are in the drawing. And then because it's 65% more inches, then I would just add 65% to 55 and then divide it by the total miles. So I'll show you what I mean. So it says 19 miles per 1 inch. So I'd do 55 times 19, and then that would give me the total amount of miles that both these drawings are representing. Next thing, it says 65% longer. So what I would do is I would 55 and then times 0.65 and then plus 55 because 55% longer, so you need to add 55 back to it. So this here would then give me the total amount of inches of this one right here, of the larger one, not the smaller one. And then what I would do here is I would just divide it by the number of miles to see how many inches it is. So what I would do here is then I would do 55 times 19, and that's going to be 1045. And then here 55 times 0.65, and then plus 55. So that is 90.75. So then it says by 1 inch. So it says an inch here. Inch represents how many miles? So it's 1045 and there's a total of 90.75 miles. So just put it on top of it. And then it tells me that each inch represents 11.51 miles. And just round this one to the closest number because it's to round. It doesn't say to round, but this here when I round is equal to B. So always make sure, like, if you don't get the exact answer and it doesn't say to round, then that's probably the wrong answer. But in this scenario here, this is basically the same thing as this answer, so that is the correct answer, even though it didn't say to round. So that is it. Those are all the new SAT math percent questions. And these are ones where you have to pay attention to the wording because they are a little tricky and try to trick you in the wording. But just make sure to read it, and if you read it, you'll be perfectly fine with these ones. And thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and check out my other videos for more SAT review.